Welcome, indie game developers! In my last video, I discussed how to build projects with CMake, SDL version 2, and Emscripten to target a web-based environment. Since then, I've been quietly working away on the visual style for my upcoming jigsaw puzzle game, figuring out how to achieve various graphical effects like shadows and glows. Over the past week or so, I finally took some time to take a closer look at some of the challenges related to toggling in and out of full-screen mode, and dealing with window resizing in the mobile browser environment. On mobile devices in particular, you want to be able to handle orientation changes, and device pixel ratio, which allows a device to display multiple physical pixels in a single CSS pixel. I also took a short detour figuring out how to get both Visual Studio and VS Code to play nicely with CMakePresets. I suspect some indie game developers just live with the inability for their editor to recognize Emscripten code, and instead build into WebAssembly purely on the command line. But for myself, I wanted my editor to be able to get the benefits of IntelliSense and visible compiler errors. I have several blog posts discussing CMakePresets and my attempts to get Visual Studio to play nicely with the Emscripten toolchain. I ultimately migrated to using VS Code instead, which I found is able to understand the way the Emscripten toolchain operates in a much more seamless manner. The latest version of the SDL Emscripten sample project on my CMake Testing Grounds repository introduces a basic CMakePresets.json file. If you want a smooth experience testing out your game in a mobile web browser environment, you'll probably also want to be able to open your browser's DevTools. I can't speak for iPhones, as I don't own one, but for Android devices you can download the Android SDK platform tools. The ADB tool is what lets you connect your mobile device to a debug session on your desktop PC. Once you have your device set up properly, and you have it open to a browser window, you can navigate to this URL in Chrome on your desktop to pull up the DevTools. This was pretty neat to see for my first time trying it out. It's a full simulation where you can see everything you're doing on your device, or simulate touch events inside the DevTools with your mouse and see it all happen in real time on your device. If you want to build a game in C++ that targets the web, I would strongly recommend getting both CMakePresets working and testing out debugging on a mobile device. Getting these two things working will make all your future development efforts go much more smoothly. When targeting the web for a video game using SDL2 and Emscripten, your game effectively runs against a single canvas element. So the expectation is that the SDL Emscripten port will need to keep the canvas element and the SDL window objects synchronized with one another. Based on my recent experience, my understanding is that the SDL Emscripten port can behave in two completely different ways, based on whether you set the SDL window resizable flag when calling SDL create window. If you turn this SDL flag on, SDL will internally listen for any sort of layout change that might cause the canvas to be resized. This covers resizing the browser window, toggling into full screen mode, or orientation changes on mobile devices. So if this flag is turned on, you don't want your application to be messing with the canvas size or window size. If you're responding to window resize events, it should only be for the purpose of determining how you want to alter the layout of your graphical elements. If you leave the SDL window resizable flag off, SDL expects your application to keep the canvas and window size in sync. So with this setting, you will be responsible for registering an Emscripten set resize callback handler, and calling both Emscripten set canvas element size and SDL set window size in order to keep the canvas and windows synchronized. By default, the SDL2 Emscripten port uses CSS pixels to decide on the dimensions of the canvas and window. It's common for mobile devices to pack multiple physical pixels into a single CSS pixel. As far as I'm aware, there is no way to get the SDL2 Emscripten port to automatically handle device pixel ratio scaling for you. The SDL window allow high DPI flag is intended for high DPI monitors in a desktop environment and does not impact the mobile browser environment. In my CMake Testing Grounds repository, you'll find a new folder named SDL2 EMSDK Full Screen Tests. I have two versions of basically the same test application. The application displays several graphical elements that I used while testing how the SDL2 Emscripten port behaves. It renders a grid line every 100 pixels, red markers in each corner, basic information about the latest window resize or mouse button event in 5 anchored positions, and the size of the window in blue in 4 anchored positions. Basically everything you need to test and debug things. The No DPR folder turns on the SDL window resizable flag, allowing the SDL2 Emscripten port to handle everything automatically. The With DPR folder leaves the SDL window resizable flag turned off and deals with device pixel ratio scaling manually. It also avoids going into actual full screen mode, instead using a soft full screen approach that just hides all other elements on the web page besides the canvas. I've also updated the original Hit the Gopher game from my previous sample project, which you can find in the game dev section of my website at rileentertainment.com. I do apologize for the rather tiny full screen toggle icon on mobile browsers. Hopefully this video can help a few aspiring indie game developers continue navigating their way through building with CMake, SDL, and Emscripten. The SDL team looks to be close to their first version 3 release for the SDL Mixer library. At some point after that happens, I plan to explore whether SDL version 3 has any changes related to window resizing in a mobile browser environment. So stay tuned to Riley Entertainment Games, and smash that like button or subscribe to my channel if you found value from this video.